I've lived in Harrow Creek my whole life. It's a small town tucked in the Wyoming foothills. Population just over 800 if you count the dogs. People here still lock their doors, not because of crime, but because of stories. My family owned a ranch on the edge of town, one of the last still standing after the droughts and floods drove most folks out. We weren't rich, but we kept the land alive. Last winter, a record-breaking snowstorm was forecasted to hit. They called it the kind of front that buries towns. Everyone was warned to hunker down. I filled the propane tank, stacked enough wood to outlast a month, and double-checked the backup generator. The night before it hit, my brother died. Car accident. Skidded on black ice and hit a tree doing 60. We buried him in frozen ground the next morning, just before the storm rolled in. Then I locked myself into the storm shelter behind the barn. Our storm shelter was an old root cellar dug into the earth, reinforced concrete and a rusted steel door. Dad built it back in the 80s when survivalist fever gripped the country. Inside, it was 12 feet long, stocked with canned food, water and a propane heater. There was no cell signal, no radio reception, just the wind howling above and the thick weight of snow pressing down over the hatch. I wasn't worried. I had enough supplies to last a week, maybe 2, and the dead don't knock. It came on the third night. Just after 2 AM, 3 slow knocks on the steel hatch. I sat up, heartbeat thudding in my ears. Maybe a tree branch, maybe shifting snow. Then a voice followed, muffled, hoarse, familiar. "It's me. It's Cal. Let me in." My blood froze. Cal, my brother, dead 2 days. Dead 2 days, buried 6 feet under in a frozen plot behind the church. "It's cold out here," the voice whispered. "Please." I didn't move, didn't answer. I waited, prayed it would go away. 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps crunching in the snow, then silence. I didn't sleep after that. Every sound felt like breath on the back of my neck. The wind outside screamed, metal creaked, ice popped in the concrete. Then again, 2:11 AM, 3 knocks, louder this time. "Please, it's freezing. Let me in. I'm hurt. I need help." I stayed silent. It spoke again. "Come on, Elijah. Don't leave me out here like this." That's when it said my name. The last person who called me that was Cal. No one else calls me Elijah, not even my parents. "You said you will always look out for me, remember?" I covered my ears. When the wind eased, I cracked the hatch and peeked out. A foot of snow blanketed everything, except a trail of bare footprints leading up to the hatch. Human. No shoes, no socks, just feet. I followed them with my eyes as they led into the woods, then disappeared, vanished mid-step, like someone had been lifted into the air. It stopped knocking, started whispering instead, through the ventilation pipe. Late at night, I'd hear it just as I drifted off. "I forgive you. Come outside. It's okay now." Then one night, "You'll never know if it was really me unless you open the door." I moved the bed across the hatch, slept with my father's old hunting rifle across my chest. The 6th day brought silence. No knocking, no whispers, just a stillness that made my skin crawl. I cracked the hatch open again and saw it. A snowman, right outside the shelter, wearing Cal's favourite flannel, crooked, rotten branches for arms. Its face wasn't made out of coal or carrots. It had a face. Cal's face. Mouth wide open, eyes cloudy, skin stretched tight with frost. It melted before sunset, but the flannel stayed, laid neatly at the top of the shelter steps. Desperate for distraction, I rummaged through my dad's old emergency supplies, found the shoebox of cassettes marked "Do Not Listen." Curiosity overrode judgment. I popped one into the dusty battery-powered player. It crackled to life. February 1989, same voice, said it was my brother too, but my brother died in Vietnam. It knocked for 6 nights. 7th night, it got in. If you're hearing this, don't answer, don't listen, don't trust its face. I checked the other tapes, each labelled with a different year, each containing the same warning. On the 7th night, I heard nothing. I thought maybe it was gone, maybe it had found someone else. Then just past 3 AM, I smelled something. Rot. The scent of wet meat and mould. Then I heard it. Not knocking. Dragging. From the far corner of the shelter. From the wall itself. The concrete began to bulge. Crack. The outline of a hand pressed through from the other side. Then a face. My face. Mouth moving. No sound. I fired a shot from the rifle and the wall exploded into a burst of snow and dust. But there was nothing behind it, just solid earth. I don't know how long I was out, but when I came to, daylight bled through the cracks in the hatch. The storm was over and I climbed out, shaking, sore, bruised. The farm was buried in drifts, but at the edge of the field, near the tree line, stood something that hadn't been there before. A statue, made out of ice, shaped like cow, head bowed, mouth open. A frozen tear carved into one cheek and etched at its feet in the snow. You left me in the cold. I sold the farm a month later and moved to Arizona. I don't tell people what happened, not fully, but I check the weather constantly. I avoid basements, and I never stay anywhere with a storm shelter because I know it's still out there, waiting for another name to learn, another voice to steal, and another door to knock on. 10 years ago, I worked seasonal maintenance at a backcountry ranger outpost in the Glacier National Park. No radio, no roads, just me and another ranger named Nick, and a wood cabin about 40 miles from the nearest trailhead. We rotated shifts, 1 week on, 1 week off. That winter, the snow came early. October dumped 4 feet in less than 2 days. I stayed at the outpost while Nick snowshoed out to the emergency resupply station for a missed package. He was supposed to be gone for 6 hours. He returned after 2 days. That was the first sign, because when he came back, he didn't seem like Nick. It hit just after he left, unforecasted and brutal. Visibility dropped to inches. The wind screamed like a banshee through the trees. I lost power twice and had to restart the generator by feel alone. The pipes froze. I rationed food, burning through the emergency supplies quicker than expected. By the end of the second day, I was starting to plan a rescue transmission. Then I saw the lantern glow through the window. Nick, stumbling towards the cabin, head down, hood iced over, covered in snow. I rushed to open the door and pulled him inside. He collapsed, shaking violently, clothes soaked, fingers red and raw. I didn't notice right away that his eyes were too wide. He didn't speak for almost an hour, just sat by the fire staring into the flames. When I asked what happened, he said he got turned around in the storm, found shelter in a rock overhang, barely survived. All believable, but his speech felt flat, like he was reciting it. No emotion, no frustration. Nick was always sarcastic, laughed through everything. This version of him didn't even blink at my jokes. Later that night, I watched him eat. Same habits, same methodical way of pulling apart the bread, but he was chewing on the plastic wrap and didn't seem to notice. I found my toothbrush wet the next morning. Didn't think much of it until I found 2 toothbrushes on the sink later that evening. Identical. Same colour, same wear. One of them was missing bristles. Nick insisted it was mine, but I knew mine was fine the day before. Then there was the boots. Mine were dry, on the mat. His were outside, where he left them. But there were wet prints in the hallway, going towards the bedroom, from bare feet. That night, we talked. I brought up the time he had to scare off a black bear the summer before, shouting, waving our arms and flares in hand. He remembered, almost word for word, except for one thing. He said the bear had blue eyes. Bears don't have blue eyes, and the real Nick had made a joke about that at the time, but this version didn't laugh, just stared at me. "Maybe I'm remembering it wrong," he said. But the way he said it was like someone practicing being human. Power failed again. I went to restart the generator. Nick offered to come with me. I said no. I took the flashlight and stepped into the blizzard. Fixed it in 10 minutes, but when I got back, the cabin door was wide open. Snow drifted inside. Nick sat by the fire, soaked, shoes off, staring at the wall. He didn't react when I came in, didn't look cold, didn't shiver. I locked my bedroom door that night. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m, I heard it, a soft scratch, not on the outside of the door, from inside the room, like nails dragging against wood. I didn't move, I didn't breathe, just lay there until morning. When I finally got up and checked, there were scratches on the inside of the window, 4 long grooves, but the snow outside was untouched. I decided to confront him, asked him what really happened out there. He just smiled, but it wasn't Nick's smile. Too wide, too still. "I found something," he said. "In the storm. It was cold, but it opened up for me. It let me in." He stood, too slow, too smooth, "and now I'm warm." Then he walked into the other room, closed the door. I heard the lock click. I radioed base, static, but just before I gave up, a voice came through, hoarse, broken. "This is Ranger Nick. I'm stuck. Overhang, day 3. I froze. The voice was him, the real Nick, still out there, still trying to get back. I turned. The other Nick was standing in the hallway, smiling. His skin was wrong, tight, shiny, like plastic stretched over meat, and his eyes weren't blinking. I left, didn't grab supplies, didn't put on boots, just ran, through snow up to my knees, through trees bending with frost. I don't remember how I got out, just remember collapsing on a ranger sled 2 days later. They told me I'd been alone in the outpost, no sign of Nick, no second set of tracks, just my own. They found Nick, the real one, frozen solid in a cave 5 miles from the outpost. He was clutching a flare gun, eyes open, mouth wide, like he died screaming. The outpost was dismantled the next spring, but sometimes, during blizzards, hikers swear they see a light flickering between the trees and a man, smiling, asking for shelter. When I rented the mountain cabin for New Year's, I just wanted to disappear for a while. My girlfriend and I had broken up a month prior. Work was a mess. I was spiraling. The idea of spending a few days in silence, in the woods, with snow draped over everything like a noise dampening blanket, that was appealing. It was a small A-frame, about 40 minutes north of Fairplay, Colorado. Remote, no Wi-Fi, no cell service, and the only way in and out was a winding icy road that wrapped around the mountains like a half-frozen snake. The owner met me at the trailhead, handed me the keys, and gave a strange warning. "Don't stay past the first night of snow." I thought he meant I'd get snowed in, but he meant something else entirely. The first day was perfect, quiet, crisp, bright. The wind had a bite to it, But the fire inside the cabin was warm and the shelves were stocked with books and a few old VHS tapes. I brought whiskey and a journal, no distractions. Around 6:30 p.m. it started snowing, gentle flakes, like feathers dropping from the sky. I watched from the front window with a drink in hand. Then the wind picked up. By 8 p.m. it was a blizzard, whiteout conditions, walls of wind hammering the roof. I checked the thermostat, no power loss, the generator held. I curled up under a blanket and fell asleep on the couch, but that was the last normal thing that happened. I woke up with a jolt, fire crackling, same blanket, same position. I looked at the clock, 6:42 p.m, the exact time I looked at before falling asleep, except it felt like hours had passed. I got up, checked the door. Snow was still falling, no new drifts, no signs of wind. Everything was identical, down to the flicker of the flame and the placement of my blanket. I laughed it off, figured I'd dreamed the first sleep and just dozed off, until I found my journal. I'd written 5 pages before falling asleep. They were gone, just the date, and a single sentence scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting: "Don't open the door." At 9:11 p.m. the knocking began. 4 sharp raps, then silence. I froze. It was impossible. No one should be out there. I waited. More knocking. Same pattern. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just snow. I opened it anyway. Cold air blasted in, but there were no footprints. Just a heavy, wet smear across the porch, like something had been dragged. I shut the door and deadbolted it. I blinked and was back on the couch. Same fire, same clock, 6:42 p.m. Same position, same feeling of deja vu, but something was different this time. The cabin was darker, and the mirror above the fireplace was missing. I checked the bathroom. The sink was full of ice, frozen solid. I tried writing in the journal again. This time, the ink bled through the paper like the pages were wet from within. Same time, 9:11 p.m. 4 knocks, but now followed by breathing. Raspy, low, wet. "Let me in." The voice was wrong. Too slow, like someone learning to speak. I didn't answer. This time, I ran to the bedroom and stayed there until morning. Back on the couch, clock, 6:42 p.m. Now the bookshelf was empty, all the titles gone. The VHS tapes unspooled, magnetic ribbons twisted like seaweed. The mirror was back, but when I passed it, it didn't show my reflection. Just the fire, burning blue. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the door with an axe in my hand, and at 9:11 p.m, the knock returned. Then the voice: "I'm cold. You're warm. You remember me?" I shouted for it to leave, then heard footsteps on the roof, pacing, scraping. The fire dimmed, shadows crawled up the walls, and then I saw it, through the window, a figure in the snow, facing away from the cabin, naked, still, its spine bending wrong, like it had too many vertebrae. This time, I didn't get up, just lay there, pretending I hadn't seen any of it. The fire wasn't lit, the walls were frosted over from the inside, and there was a snow angel on the living room floor, made from something bigger than me, with no arms, just 2 long streaks carved into the wood. I burned the journal. I ripped it from its hinges and threw it into the fire. It didn't burn. At 9:11, the knocking came from underneath the cabin. I heard breathing in the vents, then my own voice, whispering, "It only ends when you forget what the beginning was, and remember who you were before the snow." I screamed, opened every window, let the cold in, let the storm swallow me. The morning after, I woke up on the trail. Sunshine, Silence. My car was where I left it. No snow on the road, no cabin in sight, no record of the rental online, nothing. Just my backpack and a single item inside. The journal. Fresh pages. And the first entry, December 31st. Cabin seems quiet. Finally some peace. I worked with the Echo 7 Search and Rescue Unit out of northern Alberta for 5 years. Small team, tight-knit, trained for deep winter recovery in sub-zero storms, snowmobile access, avalanche zones, emergency evacuations. In January of 2019, we received an unusual distress signal from a satellite phone. It pinged once, just a single burst, about 100 miles into the backcountry, near a mountain ridge known locally as Crooked Hollow. No trails, no cabins, no roads, but the GPS coordinates were real. The blizzard had been raging for 4 days by then, visibility less than 10 feet. We debated waiting it out. We should have waited. We were four: myself, the lead responder, Danielle, medical and communications, Gord, ice rescue specialist, and Harrison, our new guy, his first major mission. We set out at dawn. Snowmobiles couldn't make it more than 30 miles before the powder got too deep. We hiked the rest, just us, a sledge full of gear, and the sound of snow grinding against our suits. The deeper we went, the stranger it felt. The snow wasn't falling anymore, it was drifting upwards. Just thin spirals of powder lifting towards the sky, like smoke from something burning underground. Danielle's compass stopped working, Gord's altimeter spun in place, and every radio check returned static, except at one spot, 400 meters from the original signal ping. There, Danielle heard something. We gathered around the headset, a whisper, barely audible. It's still down here. Don't forget me. The voice looped, but the signal strength showed 0 bars. Around hour 12, Harrison screamed. He'd found someone, a man, kneeling in the snow, completely naked. His skin was grey, like freezer-burnt meat, eyes open, unblinking, and his mouth wasn't there. Just smooth flesh stretched over where it should have been. We circled him, stunned. Danielle moved forward with a blanket. That's when the man tilted his head and whispered. No mouth, no movement, but we all heard it. Please, don't let me forget. Harrison vanished, just blinked out. One moment there, the next, his coat and boots crumpled in the snow. No body, no scream, just silence. We radioed back to command, no response. Gord shouted in the snow until his voice cracked. Danielle stood frozen, whispering Harrison's name like a mantra. The mouthless man didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. Then, a new whisper. Another storm, another team, another forgetting. Danielle grabbed my arm. He's not talking to us, she said. He's talking to himself. We wrapped the man in emergency blankets and strapped him to the sled. That's when we found the crack in the ridge. A cave mouth buried beneath an overhang. It hadn't been on any maps. Fresh snow blew from its entrance, not into it, but out. We debated entering, then the whisper changed. Back inside, before it resets, before it learns again. We took him in. We should have left him. The cave went deeper than any of us expected. It wasn't natural. The walls were smooth, not stone, something like bone. We found carvings, symbols that hurt to look at, spirals within spirals, repeating eyes, pictographs of mouths sewn shut and people kneeling before something vast. The The temperature dropped the further in we went. The man on the sledge began to shake violently. Then he spoke again. No voice, no lips, but heard by all. "Do remember. Memory feeds it." We lost Gorge in the blue chamber. The walls simmered there, like water frozen mid-wave. Gord touched one and froze. I mean, literally froze, ice spreading from his hand across his body. He turned to us, eyes wild, then smiled. Shattered. Danielle broke. She screamed and ran back the way we came. I chased her, but the cave had changed. There was no entrance anymore. Only mouths carved into the walls, gaping open. They whispered names, ours. Then one name I didn't know. Elias. I turned around. The mouthless man was standing now, not strapped in, not blank, smiling, and his mouth had returned. He whispered one last time, "This is where I found them. This is where I became. You will too." I woke up in the snow, same position, same spot. Danielle, Gord, and Harrison beside me, alive, unaware. The distress signal pinged again. The blizzard still raged. The cave entrance up ahead. We were walking towards it again. And I remembered everything, but they didn't. I've lived this rescue 9 times now. Each time, one of us disappears. Each time, a man changes. Each time, I remember more. Eventually, I think I'll forget who I was before the mission. Eventually, I'll start writing these notes. Eventually, I'll be the one kneeling in the snow, mouthless, whispering, waiting to be found. It all started with a call no ranger wants to get. Solo hiker, female, 29, last seen near Coal Ridge Pass, 5 days overdue, family requesting search and rescue. I was one of the 3 assigned to the mission. Coal Ridge was a nightmare even on a good day. High elevation, narrow switchbacks, no trees for cover, and now a blizzard had swept in 2 days prior, and by the time we got the call, temperatures had dipped below -20 Fahrenheit with wind chill. They told us not to expect a body. What we found wasn't quite a body, but I'm not convinced it was a survivor either. We found her on the 6th day. She was kneeling in a drift, completely still, her face caked in frost and ice. Snow had mounded around her legs like she's been sitting there for hours or days. When we got closer, she blinked, slow, mechanical. Her lips were cracked and bloodless, her eyes glassy, unfocused. I took her arm, expecting it to be frozen solid. Instead, her skin was warm, almost feverish. We asked her name. She didn't respond, just stared past us towards the mountains. It took 6 hours to get her back to base. She didn't speak the entire way, didn't shiver, didn't ask for food or water. We wrapped her in blankets, monitored vitals. She was stable, just still. The doctor said it was shock, said it was a miracle she survived. They gave her a room at the ranger station while waiting for a medevac. That night, one of the nurses found her standing by the window, barefoot, staring at the snow. By day 2, she began to speak. Short phrases, never initiated conversation, always in response. When asked what happened, she would say, "I heard it calling. I followed the wind. It told me to wait." The psychiatrist said it was trauma, but her speech wasn't fragmented. It was precise, calculated, like reciting instructions. I reviewed the drone footage from the search. When we found her, she wasn't wandering. She was kneeling in a perfect circle of untouched snow. All around her were faint markings in the drift, ruins, symbols, spirals. They weren't there in earlier satellite photos. They weren't natural, and worse, when we zoomed in, she wasn't alone. there was a shadow behind her, tall, featureless, gone by the next frame. When her pack was recovered, something was wrong. Everything inside, journal, GPS, maps, all untouched. But there were two strange additions: a blanket of animal fur woven in a spiral, and a sealed jar filled with ash and teeth. We tried to trace the source. No records, no fingerprints, no DNA hits. It was like they were left for her out there, or she brought them back. By day 3, the air in the station started to feel wrong. Colder, despite the heating system working fine. Staff reported nausea, headaches, vivid dreams. The station dog wouldn't go near her room, would growl at the door and piss itself every time it got close. That night, I passed her room on the way to the kitchen. She was awake, standing perfectly still, her hands pressed against the glass. She was smiling. On day 4, she vanished. Door locked from the inside, window sealed, but the room was empty. No footprints, no sign of struggle. Only one thing remained: a perfect circle burned into the floorboards. At the centre, a single snowflake, not drawn, not carved, a real snowflake, suspended, frozen in place. 3 days later, a family called in a tip from a town 30 miles away. They said a woman matching the missing hiker's description walked through their field in the middle of a blizzard, barefoot, smiling, mouth moving but no sound. When they tried to approach, she walked into the woods and vanished. That was the last confirmed sighting. I reviewed her journal again. One entry stood out, written on the first day of her hike. There's something wrong with the snow here. It doesn't fall, it hovers. I saw my reflection in the eyes, but it didn't move when I did. There's a voice in the wind. If I don't come back, it's because I followed it. I received a letter last week, no return address. Inside was a photo, the same woman, kneeling in the snow, same circle, same ruins, only now the shadow behind her was clearer, taller, closer, its hand on her shoulder, and written in red ink beneath the photo: "She came back because you found her. Next time, don't interfere." They closed Cold Ridge the next month, cited avalanche risk, but every time it snows heavily, locals report hearing laughter in the storm, and some swear they see a woman walking the ridges, always barefoot, always smiling, and always staring straight into the white.